Hi, everyone. I'm Michal LeBaron with Wholehearted Healing, the Chronic Illness Solution. And I'm here with a very special guest, Madalyn Bear, who is willing to share her story of how she's overcome chronic illness and went through years struggling through functional or through conventional medicines. She's even tried holistic and alternative medicines to no avail, and how she finally found success and freedom and healing through the functional medicine approach, which is really to get to the root cause of symptoms so that you can provide a permanent solution. So Madalyn, if you just want to introduce yourself and let everybody know a little bit about you, just so we know, you're a normal human, just like everyone watching. And, if you can heal and I can heal, so can they.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Madalyn Bear. I'm 34. I'm married. I have a full-time corporate job in marketing and also have a side hustle. I'm an entrepreneur, so keeps me busy. I have a couple sisters and we all live in Colorado. So it's great that we're all together.
Yep. Awesome, Madalyn. And I know you mentioned that some of your biggest struggles that you ended up realizing you had was hypothyroid, IBS, and SIBO. But in the beginning, you didn't even have those answers. I think you had a lot of just kind of random or mystery symptoms. So would you mind sharing with people where were you at your worst and kind of at your starting point before you found answers?
Yeah, well, I think it really hit about 10 years ago when I had a big stressful events actually. But ever since I was a child, the way that I dealt with stress and I was anxious, I couldn't go to school. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't eat breakfast. I took a lot of antibiotics. I was sick quite a bit, I think, growing up. I was just a very nervous child. So I think I always felt something in my gut. Like I always felt that tightness and I overthought things. And so, way later, where we're talking about 10 years ago, within 3 months, I had lost my job. I had an injury in like a half marathon. I had injured my leg where I was on the couch for like at least a month. And then I also lost my mom. So it was just unexpected and it was just everything coming at once. And it was just such a big stressful point that was the trigger when I was really feeling that IBS, those digestive issues, constipation, extreme, bloating. I always kind of had that growing up. I had, kind of like digestive things, but it just really got overwhelming at that point. Just feeling kind of depressed and anxious, just given the stress that I was experiencing. Losing my hair, was losing a lot of weight because I just had this bad relationship with food, because it felt like every time I ate something, it would just, my body would react to it. I would, I would get so bloated and, TMI, gassy. But when you're experiencing those things, it's kind of like those silent symptoms. People look at you from the outside and say, "Oh, you're fine," but you're just dealing with all of this internally. So it was at that point, just at a breaking point where I was seeing doctors, a lot of different kinds of doctors, getting, sometimes it was 3 blood tests a week. And I started to change almost my identity of feeling like I'm just this sick person, because I would see people around me and I'm like, they're laughing, they have energy, they have so much fun. And I just really felt like kind of sick all the time. And I started to really connect being sick and that's who I am, because I couldn't start to figure out what was going on.
I love what you're sharing. And I want to kind of speak to some of what you said because it's very important to the work that we do with our clients and how our programs are built, which are custom built based on whatever root cause people are dealing with. But the first thing you said was stress. And so what we've learned for me, I've been teaching this work for 13 years. What we have seen is functional medicine is just kind of it's kind of kindergarten. It's like the surface level of, okay, let's run the right tests, and let's figure out what's really going on and look deeper than the regular doctors or specialists. But really it comes down to stress management. And as you kind of told your story, you connected the dots that within 3 months of life-altering events, you developed a chronic illness. And that's what we have found with all of our clients, that if we look back, sometimes 4 to 6 months, but within a few months, there is always a life-changing event. And sometimes it's not traumatic or sad. Sometimes it's happy, like a marriage. Sometimes, or having a baby. But sometimes it is sad, and sometimes it is traumatic. And these life-altering events that we don't cope with the stress and the conflict that comes up for us, we end up turning on and developing an illness. So that's what we help our clients do with every single client. So I love just intuitively, you knew to connect those dots. And the other big one is an identity. When we develop those chronic illnesses or new illnesses that become chronic, we do create an identity around our symptoms, and it becomes so interwoven with who we are that we don't even know who we are without it. And that was a big one in my own healing journey, was actually seeing that they had become me and they weren't really me. And so when I finally saw that, it was like, in my mind, I was like, oh, wow, it's like I've been living for over a decade. There's me, and I'm in this big dark cloud of my symptoms. And I was thinking that that was me, that it was all me. But really my symptoms were just this big dark cloud that maybe would get me out of stuff if it was too stressful, or, would be my excuse for things, or would be my way to cope with life, or, it'd be a reason to stay in bed if I'd get really flared up, if I just wasn't up to dealing with whatever it was. It was my way of not coping with stress. And by learning to cope with stress, the normal stresses of our life in a healthy way, I was able to let go of that identity as well, and know myself as a healthy person again. So I wanted to speak, it's not just Madalyn, it's not just you and your experience. This is something, and what you're speaking to is these are common threads that I see in 100% of the clients that I work with. And these are the kinds of things that we actually have to start working on in order to get people well. So fast forward to today, where are you now? And if you want to kind of bridge the gap, I know you've seen even the top professors at Stanford, if you want to kind of show us what you did that didn't work, but I would love to hear where you're at now as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing you were talking about, stress, I just wanted to mention that it did take me a while to figure out that was, such a big thing. It's so much easier to think about diet, food, exercise. It seems tangible, but the stress, my sisters and I always laugh that our dad, don't do this, it'll stress you out, like watch your stress. And, we're just, oh, dad, but now, like today, I'm just like, he was so right. It really is a common thread when you look at these kind of symptoms and these things popping up. So where I am today, I really try to manage my stress. Like, it's really important to me, my sleep, managing stress, listening to my body. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is every single thing that pops up that doesn't feel right, that's a symptom from your body. That's a sign from your body that there needs to be some kind of shift or change. And approaching that, I love my body and I want to listen to it instead of at war. Because there were so many times where I didn't like food because it kept doing something to me. And so I felt at war with my body. I would just like cry in the middle of the, I was crying a lot because I was just like, why is my body at war with me? Like, what did I do? I'm trying my best. I'm eating healthy. I'm doing this, but I was, like my mindset wasn't right. My approach to food, just stressing and trying too hard, working out my body hard because I'm going to make it do this thing and look a certain way. So where I am today is just coming in with a more gentle approach to my body, listening to it. I've really, really helped my fatigue, constipation, which was such a big issue for me. I mean, I wasn't going to the bathroom, like sometimes it was 8 days, and it's just miserable. Anyone who can experience that, it's a big deal. It's not, just like, oh, regular bloating or things like that. So I now like
how I would describe that at the heart of my journey my
Yeah.
digestive system was shutting down as well, as was
Mhm.
my liver and a few different organs. And how I would describe it to my mom in tears was, I
Mhm.
feel like I'm being poisoned from the inside out.
Mm.
Feel like that's how I imagined it was. It's like if I'm not going poo, then it's like
Yeah.
felt like it was all in there and it was like absorbing into my bloodstream. That's how I imagined it. Maybe it was true, but it's like it
Yeah.
does produce toxins and bacteria
Absolutely.
and gases. It's more than just uncomfortable physically. It
Right.
really does recirculate those toxins. You can't eliminate the
Right.
things that your body wants to get out of your system. And so it just kind of stays there and festers. So it is a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I had learned how important it is. That is one of the biggest ways that you detox. And I remember, so I was seeing multiple doctors. At one point in the beginning, I was seeing a doctor who was like, okay, let's do the low FODMAP diet. And for those of you that don't know, it's basically these certain foods and how they digest the carbohydrate and sugar, how they ferment in the lower intestine, and they can cause gas and bloating. So it makes sense. But there was no like approach to that. It was just like, take out this group, come back next week or so. Came back, nothing happened. Take out the next one. There was no like replace it with this. I mean, there came a point where I was just like, I didn't even know what to eat anymore. I was just eating chicken and like carrots and zucchini. And so that was like really frustrating. I had heard of SIBO at that time. It was like a new concept, or something that was new and emerging. Um, and I asked the doctor, like, oh, maybe we could test if I have small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And they were like, no, 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 let's just keep cutting foods and see what happens. And so it wasn't until 2 years later that finally I saw another doctor who said, okay, let's test for it. And that's what I had. So I went through the antibiotics, and but again, like over that time, different kind of things going on, a lot of blood tests, don't have celiac, don't have this, don't have that. I started feeling like, okay, I don't have anything. I kind of want something at this point. Like I want
An
some
answer.
idea. I actually want something. And, I at the point where I was like, okay, now I've worked up the ladder where I was seeing the top GI doctor at Stanford, and not just anything bad about Stanford doctors. They are fantastic about what they do. They've helped my dad a lot, who had struggled with cancer. But I didn't have a condition, I didn't have a disease. And I remember walking in, I waited 8 months and I was like kind of excited, nervous, and I had my like little notepad and pencil. I'm like, okay, I have all these questions, like I'm gonna get answers. And within 10 minutes, the first thing that was mentioned is, oh, we can prescribe antidepressants. And I just felt immediately this like kind of down experience of like, really, that's the solution. And I was like, no, I want to do something more, holistic. I don't want to take a pill. Um, so nothing really came of that. I had felt so sad after that, because it's like, if the top doctor couldn't understand or help me, like no one can help me. No one can help me. And I just felt like that's not going to work. Even years ago when they were putting me on laxatives, and I was taking it twice a day. And I was taking it for a while, and I was telling my doctors like, well, when can I stop taking this? Like, I don't like that I'm taking laxatives all the time. It does not feel normal. And I remember her telling me, well, you should feel lucky. There's people who are on it their whole life, or taking it 3 times a day. You're only taking it once or twice. You're fine. And I remember thinking like, no, that's not how I want to treat my body. So, it wasn't until later, I would say after 7 years of just going back and forth, up and down. And what's interesting is every stressful point in my life, so my mom had passed away. About 5 years later, my dad was struggling with a couple cancers. It was very, very, very stressful. He had passed. I then had so many symptoms again. I'm like, ugh, I bet I have SIBO again. Went back, had SIBO. Another time around, another big stressful event, had SIBO again. So starting to see that pattern. And that's when I started shifting after 7 years of this, and started to work with a health coach who just really brought this whole perspective of food is medicine, like food is your friend. And I remember thinking like, oh, it's my enemy. And it was like this shift of thoughts. So it was such a great introduction to taking care of your body, drinking that water, getting sleep, and all those things. And then I got even, deeper with functional medicine and just more of a functional approach. And that's where I found so much change because we looked deeper. The questions kept asking. It wasn't like, oh, you have SIBO, done. You're that's what it is. Address it. See you next time until you feel horrible again. It was, why do you have SIBO? And no one had ever tested me for my thyroid panel, like TSH, not even once. I had hypothyroid. So everything just had slowed down, digestion. That's when I started gaining weight. Because at the point of those 7 years, actually, I had lost a lot of weight, like 20, 25 pounds, because not only just was I not feeling good and at war with food and just like, I don't even want to eat because I don't even feel good when I eat. Then I started feeling better, and I was finding that it's harder to lose weight now. My body had shifted after 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And another question was asked, like, well, why do you have thyroid issues? Why do you always have anemia? They weren't just gonna put me on iron. And it was come to find out like parasites that were, taking my iron and making me depleted, and metal toxicity. Yep. So a lot of those kind of issues were like even deeper. So I have so much thanks and gratitude for the functional approach in medicine, because I felt always supported. Like, I was like, oh, my bloating and this and that's like 80% better. And the approach was, well, I want to get you to 100%. Like, why are you getting?
Why only 80?
Yeah, 8. Why only 80? And I thought 80 is amazing. I'll keep 80%. So I just it's, been quite a journey, but I think I've just learned so much, and I just appreciate, I do appreciate that struggle, because I wouldn't be where I am here like today, understanding how to take care of my body, and, just really appreciating all that functional approach has done for me.
I love what you share, and it's not just you. As I hear, I mean, I've heard thousands of stories. I've worked with thousands of people over 13 plus years, and the stories sound like yours.
Mm-hmm.
Just the things you're saying, it's like these are very common. And a lot of people, there's two things that you brought up I really want to speak to. One is there really is this belief or this hopelessness that no one can help me. And we've seen it because people have gone to the Mayo Clinic, and the Mayo Clinic team of doctors, after all their tests and all their workup, and they even have holistic and alternative people on staff as part of the team, couldn't give any answers, and then they come to us, and within half an hour, we're not going to give up, and we're going to look deep. And so within half an hour, it was, well, you have Lyme bacteria that are off the charts in the thousands. Your immune system's going haywire. It matches all your symptoms. Didn't the Mayo Clinic doctors say anything about this, or what they do to treat that? Mm-hmm. Oh, nothing, because it was 2 strains, not 4 strains, and 4 strains are needed to get a diagnosis and treatment. So for those people who have tried everything, and I was one of them, I saw dozens of people from Chinese, holistic, functional, natural, nutritionists and massage therapists and chiropractors, and did the heavy metal tests, the stool tests, and the food allergy tests, and did the different diets and tried the different supplements. And I had felt like I had tried everything too. But those are the people that we see, because when you have this level of training or awareness that you can go deeper, and every symptom does have a root cause, and you know how to find that, it's like, well, you tried dozens of things, but they were all inside of conventional medicine, mm-hmm. which is really designed to diagnose and treat disease, not address the root cause. Or maybe you tried all this stuff in holistic and alternative medicine, but it wasn't much different. Instead of meds, they're giving you supplements or herbs, or, they're like, here, try this. It's a good remedy. but nobody's actually asking those questions. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? But why? But why? But it doesn't, there has to be a cause to that too. That's not the root cause. That's a symptom too. And so, you know, the best that you can get really in Western and alternative medicines is a suppression of symptoms and kind of a band-aiding of symptoms. And that's different than really becoming healthy by getting to the root cause, allowing your body to heal and repair itself and get kind of back to just its normal operating state. And that's possible for everyone. None of our bodies are flawed or broken or different when you have a new understanding, like Madalyn's saying, of how your body works and what it needs and how to understand the symptoms and what they're telling you. That's that understanding of your body and how it works is what gives you those new answers that you just don't find in conventional and even alternative and holistic healthcare. The other thing you said was you didn't even stop at 80%. And I talk a lot about that with my clients, that this is an iterative process, which means it keeps going. You assess, you find the root cause, you address it, and then you reassess. Did it work? You know, and if you're 80% better, that's great, but why not 100? We're missing something. So we reassess, we find the root cause, we address it, and then we reassess. And in some of my videos I've shared with you guys, it's a process that does not give up on you. And for me, that was huge, because everything I had tried, and you too, I'm sure, at some point it was the shoulder shrug. Well, I'm sorry, we don't have any more answers. I'm sorry, it didn't work for you. Well, it's pretty good. You're only on laxatives.
Yeah, right.
80% better. So I'd say it worked. You know,
yeah, right.
It's like, no, hold on, that's not healthy. And that's what this commitment is. So I just wanted to speak to those. Madalyn, what would you say is the biggest gift or takeaway you have, or tool, you know, that you've gained through the functional process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think definitely the idea of like listening to your body, that your body is on your side. You don't need to be at war with it.
Or afraid of it.
Or afraid of it. And the more kind of care and understanding and, you know, just being still with your body to understand like what's going on, what kind of sign, even as small as it may be, listening to that, because it gets louder and louder if you don't listen to it. So I think that's definitely the listening to the body. And just one of also the biggest things was just changing my mindset to listen to my body, but also to just like understand how stress affects my body, because that's where it was popping up, and making that a priority, whether that's like perceived stress or stressing out the body with too hard of workouts that you're just like pushing for, or not getting enough sleep. But really, it's like that stress and listening to the body has been huge.
Love it. Yep. And by listening to yourself, your body, which we always know, but it's strange. It's like, oh, I always knew that, but I wasn't listening. You have to kind of learn to listen, but you always knew anyway. But when you listen, you can make those supportive choices. And when you make the supportive choice for you, which might change day to day, then you can build resilience, which is the ability to bounce back quickly in times of stress. And resilience is actually what turns on our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's where our body's ability to self-repair is turned on. So we digest optimally, detox, and we rapidly repair our bodies. So I love that's what you're demonstrating and talking about. I had a side thought, but I lost it. So hopefully I'll remember.
It'll pop up.
Oh, yeah. What would you say to somebody who hasn't walked this path and they might be on the fence? Like, you know, what we do is different. It's not conventional. It's also not holistic or alternative. And so it could maybe sound different or weird or new. It's not in mainstream media, so there might be skeptical people or people like, oh, that can't work for me.
Right, right.
Maybe I'm different. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say that when you say yes to yourself, like when you're able to take that leap of faith, because it feels more comfortable just to be stuck where you are. And, I know I was starting to normalize feeling a certain way and just, well, maybe this is just the way my body is. And it's been 7 years. Like maybe this is the way it is. But just not giving up on your body. And when you can say yes to yourself, there's always some kind of benefit. There's always like at least some kind of learning. Um, so just giving something a try that's different and new is super rewarding. Whether or not you get to the very end goal, there's always, when you say yes to something, there's always a benefit of learning or getting halfway there or maybe getting the full way there. So just giving things a chance for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And then giving yourself the chance to be
Yeah,
healthy. I
right.
remembered my question. Madalyn, what is it like knowing that you can get to the root cause of any symptom or flare up that might arise?
Yeah, I mean just feeling like at peace, and that, kind of more having a little bit more control, even though I know I can't absolutely control my body, but it feels like things are, I guess, more in control, in that there's always hope. um I don't have to live with pain or suffering. Like there is light at the tunnel.
I love it. I experienced that too. It's my mom made a comment after I really addressed the root cause and became healthy. And she had seen me for tons of time on all the different diets, right? She cooked me all the special food when I visited, and she the journey. And then she was watching me drink tap water one day. She's like, "Oh, don't drink that. It's tap water." Because I was like purified water and purified food and very limited diet and all that. And I was like, "Oh, mom, it's okay. My body just filters out what it doesn't need. Everything. I'm not going to react to this. I'm healthy."
Yeah.
And she was like, "It's just like you're not afraid anymore." And it was the first I hadn't realized, because I had just changed. I think we don't always realize when we change. It's when other people tell us, "Oh, you're
Yeah,
so different," that you're like, "Oh, I guess I am." But
mhm.
it was the first time I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not afraid of food. I'm not afraid of water. I'm not afraid of the air, because I have been, because it's toxic and polluted and I would react to it. I'm not afraid of chemicals or scents. I'm not even afraid if I flare up once a year, after something stressful. I'm like, oh, I must have not coped with that stress. What was it? What do I need to work through? And boom, I do, and it's gone. It's like just the fear factor being gone is huge for me. Um,
Yeah, the fear, and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, and once I had addressed a lot of these conditions, it wasn't only just, healing my gut, where, that's where a lot of our neurotransmitters are, produced. But it was just the fact of being so fearful and, like you said, afraid, like those are good words to describe it, that was causing so much anxiety, that once I didn't fear food as much anymore, that just kind of started to dissipate.
Yep, awesome. And I love your explanations. I'm excited to share with people what you're up to now. Um, how would you describe this in your own words? Because I think I always ask people, was there any way I could have described more clearly what this program was? And they always tell me, you tried, but until you go through it, there
Yeah,
was just no way to really know. But I think it would help for people, that you're saying, take a chance on yourself, have faith, give yourself the chance to be healthy.
absolutely.
How would you describe what this is, this healing path?
Yeah, I mean, it's that support and that accountability that is so like needed. I think you were talking about, we were talking about saying yes and making those choices and doing those things, but like I couldn't have done it without having the support or the accountability. Like it's so hard to do that when you're in the day to day and just living life, like I needed a guide. I needed someone to have that structure of like, okay, I know all of this is going on, but we're going to start with this first. And this is the first step, and boom, 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 boom. And it just takes that stress away because I don't have to figure out, well, there's so many different avenues, you can go. And really that process, what I've kind of heard before and can describe it is, we were talking about the root cause. Like you think about a plant and maybe it has like some brown leaves and maybe some speckles because it has something going on. Before I was approaching it more conventionally where, what pills or, what is that symptom? Let's just make it go away. But with this functional approach, again, looking at that root cause, looking at the roots, like what is the soil? Does it have enough nutrients? Is it getting enough water? Is there enough sun? Like everything, the environment. So it really is, this approach is not only getting the guidance and the structure and the step-by-step plan to take off that feeling of being overwhelmed, but also just what it's like. It's like digging in deeper, looking at everything. When I was seeing other doctors, I would go in and, we wouldn't even talk about like what did I eat that made me bloated? Like, how was your sleep? How are you doing? Never had a question. And the first time I had this kind of functional approach, and it was like these in-depth questions of like, what kind of medications had you taken in the past? Like, what was your childhood like? What do you believe about this? And all this in depth of like history and thoughts and diet and sleep. And I was like, wow, like, I feel like you really know me.
Yep. I couldn't have done it alone either.
Yeah.
Myself, I needed a mentor. And part of that is that none of my habits were of a healthy person. So how I couldn't have just stepped in to overnight do that. I needed a guide to show me, like you said, step by step. And it really is, when you're just focusing on that one next step, you don't have to see all the pieces. So I love that you shared. And, with the plant analogy, I picture, because we were talking before the video, so the conventional doctor is good at saying, your leaf is brown. But you think of a med or a supplement as just painting the leaf green. Versus like what you're talking about. How are the roots? Are there root rot and the soil and the nutrients and the sunlight and the water patterns? And what does this particular plant need? Is so different. So I love how you've described that. And what I was going to say, a lot of people that we work with have already tried functional. And so Madalyn and I were talking kind of before the video that it's really like functional and beyond. It's really the beyond functional, where you dive into the deeper stresses and the more interpersonal stuff, and just go even beyond leaky gut or beyond parasites. Like, how did your body get susceptible to that in the first place? And that's what's really, really important and sets it apart. So we're saying functional, but it really is beyond functional. And that's the system and the path. And it has to be that way for people to get really, really well. So thank you, Madalyn, for sharing. What's exciting is who you've become now for others, and how we're now utilizing you with our clients. Because you're a health and nutrition coach.
Yes.
Yay. So you're hand holding people through those step-by-steps. How are they going to actually apply what they're learning and make the changes that they need to make? So feel free to share about that.
Yeah. I mean, just that whole story, my story, that's where all that like passion came from, because I remember thinking, years in, just feeling miserable. Like, if I was thinking, if I can figure this out, like, I got to share this, like, because it's miserable. And, even just like, if I could just have a plan of like what to eat and how to fix this, I would want to share that and help people to not have to go through, 7+ years of trying to feel better. And so that's where I started really seeing my passion for helping people through health coaching and nutrition coaching. So I went back and, got my education in that certification, also a fitness coach, and just like so much passion is there because it's just really been part of my life. And, my greatest, I guess, appreciation, my greatest like reward is being able to help people just piece that together. And like you said, like beyond functional, looking at why. And through my health coaching, I started seeing a lot of shifts. Like I remember like signing up for the program. They're like, this is going to change your life. Like the way you think about things. I'm like, okay, whatever. And I mean, ever since I had finished that program, I'm like, wow, your mind has so much to do with it. The way that your belief systems, your thoughts, and how they inform your actions. And like you were saying about how your mom was like, oh my gosh, you're so different. That it literally took some years for me to actually reflect and be like, oh my gosh, I used to feel like this. I used to think like that.
You forget.
And I forget. And so, right, even now I'm like trying to appreciate how my mindset has shifted. And I think that's the greatest reward. And that's where I want to bring my clients, where, we're looking beyond, of course, we're always addressing like what is causing symptoms and how can we remove things so there's healing. But then like on one of my favorite parts is being able to say, what is bringing you stress in life and like why, and, digging in deeper. So yeah, definitely love being able to be that person that kind of like really digs in deep and helps with all the little things and build the little habits. And because I wanted that so bad, I just wanted someone to be there with me just to say like, do this, do that, taking the stress off. And so that's what I really want to be for people.
Yep. So awesome. And it's like you become their greatest cheerleader or advocate or partner.
Right.
And it's so fulfilling for me as well. I love how you said in your own experience, just realizing how much your mind has to do with things. So one of the things we teach to help people kind of make sense of what we're talking about is that, okay, you have how your body operates and your organs, and most people only stop there. And so functional medicine is really good to give your current body and organs support where they might be hurting or hindered. But what's controlling the body? It's actually our brain and our nervous system. That's the control center for the entire. So this is the hardware, but this is the software. Your brain and your nervous system is the software. So regulating your nervous system, which has everything to do with stress, because and your mind, right?
Right.
That's key. Whether you feel afraid, you're going to be in fight or flight, or whether you're able to cope with life stress and you're resilient, that's going to change how your nervous system and brain are signaling all of your body functions. So then we went one step deeper, and this is huge, is what is controlling your brain and nervous system? There's something that must signal, right? Your nervous system to be in fight or flight, or be in resting and digesting, and that's you. That's your mind, or your unconscious, or your beliefs, your perceptions. It's the parts of you, how you see the world and respond and deal with stress. So that must be addressed in order to have the brain and nervous system be healthy, in order to self-repair and help the body be healthy. So awesome. So the best way to plug in for those of you who are new or wanting to look into this yourself, I teach out of a Facebook group, the Wholehearted Healing. It's Wholehearted Healing, the Chronic Illness Solution. And you can also find me on our website, chronicillnesssolution.com. And Madalyn, if people want to reach out to you specifically, how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm at wisebitewellness.com. That's the website. There's like a schedule link for free consultation. There's like no pressure for commitment. I just really like to connect with people, and whatever they can take away, even from a consultation, is the whole point of it. And on Instagram, Wisebite Wellness. It's like Wise, WISEBITE Wellness. Those are the couple of the best ways to contact me.
Yep, awesome. And Madalyn and I work together. So between the hand holding that helps you guys actually apply what's needed and the expertise of what I teach in the functional medicine, and from the testing to the dealing with the deeper traumas and stresses from your past, we make a rock solid team to be able to help you get well. And what we consistently see is it's a few months it doesn't have to draw out or be a long time when you have all the pieces that you need. So this was wonderful. Thank you, Madalyn. Is there anything else you want to tell people before we go?
I mean, like, just, giving yourself grace and knowing that you can feel better. Like, there's so many stories, and I know you've also heard those stories and have experienced it yourself. And but there is hope at the end of the tunnel. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, Michal. This was just a pleasure.
Well, I'm so glad, and it fills my heart up. Hopefully those of you listening, you take hope from Madalyn's story and inspiration, because there's nothing different about her or me that had, us go from where we were to healthy. There's nothing we have that you don't have. And so apart from education, like understanding our bodies and knowing how to get to the root cause, there's nothing different. We're not special, our bodies aren't magical, they're just like yours. So you can have this too. And if you're struggling with some of the same things or different symptoms, definitely we would love to talk with you and help you find what's been missing, what your doctors have missed, and what it's going to take for you to be fully healthy in a short period of time. So thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.